joined now by France's ambassador to the United States, Gerard. Ambassador, thank you very much. First, our condolences for what your country has been through. It is truly France's 9/11.
No, thank you very much. And we have been very quite moved by the reaction of the public opinion, the American public opinion, and also by the reaction of the administration. You know, this outpouring of compassion and solidarity, it's really, really great.
What about the military options right now? Because France has, for the first time, been using airstrikes for the first time since the attacks. They have begun bombing in Syria, not just in Iraq. Russia is now heavily engaged because it has confirmed that its airliner was blown up by an ISIS bomb. So you have a coalition now, a new coalition of Russia, France, and the United States. What does President Hollande want to see militarily against ISIS?
No, I think first we had started striking in Syria before the Paris attack. I had informed precisely that in Raqqa, attacks against our country, but unfortunately we were not successful to prevent them. So now we are striking with the Russians and also with the Americans because we have a common enemy, obviously, which is ISIS. But you don't win a war with planes. So we need ground forces. And to have ground forces, we need to put an end to the Syrian So I think it's very important that our military coalition is transformed also into a political coalition, and so that we have a political transition in Syria.
But the urgent need now is to go after ISIS and to prevent further terrorism against France, against the other countries in the world. It's taken 5 years, and this political coalition is very slow in forming. So in the immediate instance of stopping terror, what can France do?
No, first, in a sense, there is no immediate solution to the problem itself, because the problem that the Europeans are facing, which is not only terror and the foreign fighters, but which is also the migrants crisis. 1 million of migrants coming and a few millions really which could come. We have to solve the Syrian crisis, to put an end to the civil war. It will take time, but I think that after the attacks, after the attack against the Russian plane, there is a new sense of urgency. And if the French president is coming to Washington on the 24th of November and afterwards going to Moscow, is to try, really to impress on President Obama and on President Putin this sense of urgency. We can't wait 18 months, 2 years. We have to solve it right now.
In fact, President Hollande was critical of the international response so far, saying it was incomprehensible, it did not make sense, it did not add up. So he wants something more urgently, but so far Russia and the United States have been on different pages. Do you think that President Hollande can bridge the gap and bring together these disparate groups?
I think, you're right. We are on different page with the Russians, and we are very close to our American friends. But I think we are getting closer and closer. The idea of having a ceasefire, for instance, in Syria, now is admitted by nearly everybody. We have still to convince our allies in the region to accept it. The idea of having a political transition after 6 months, to have a new governing body in Syria, to have elections. So the general ideas are there, but of course the devil is in the detail, so we have to work on it, but we have a new sense of urgency.
What do we know about whether this man, Abaoud, the mastermind, reportedly, how he could have gotten away? Was there an intelligence failure here? The French and perhaps the Americans thought he was in Syria, not in Paris.
No, it's, when you have such an attack like the 9/11, there is always a sense of a failure. It's obviously. But it also emphasizes the difficulties of our law enforcement agencies, because 1 million of migrants coming, really, and apparently one of the terrorists was one of the migrants. How can you vet all these migrants? Also, also, we have in France thousands of youth who are radicalized. It means we don't have the means to monitor them 24/7, and we don't know whether they are going to cross the red line and to become terrorists. You can't arrest people only because of their opinion in a democracy. You have also thousands of young Europeans who are in Syria, and they will come back. We have not identified all of them. It's very easy to travel in Europe, and they come back militarized and military trained and radicalized and rapidly anti-Semitic. So we are facing, in a sense, a very tough challenge.
Are you getting enough military and intelligence cooperation help from the United States?
I can say that the cooperation in terms of intelligence has dramatically improved these last days. You know, after the attacks.
But not before the attacks.
Before the attacks, we had a cooperation, but it could have been better.
And since the attacks?
Since the attack, the cooperation has really improved significantly.